We resume in the midst of Ash's battle with Blaine. After beating Ninetales, Ash's 6th capture has fallen to Rhydon, though the boy is undeterred, thanking it for its effort and returning it. In its place he sends out Wartortle, with the tenacious Testudines exuding an aura of cool determination that even the heat of a volcano cannot ruin. Eyeing its smaller opponent suspiciously, Rhydon prepares a horn drill, hoping to take the turtle out in one, but being ready for this, Ash has Wartortle retreat inside its shell with a rapid spin, which counters the one-hit KO move, while also leaving the water starter in a perfect position to launch a point-blank water gun which preys on Rhydon's quad water weakness. Staggering back, the drill Pokemon attempts to find its footing, though Ash isn't giving up his advantage that easily, having Wartortle blast Rhydon again, leaving it unconscious. Now it is time for Blaine's final Pokemon, and like against Gary, this is Magmar. Making the same entrance by rising from the lava, the Spitfire Pokemon approaches Wartortle, seemingly unfazed by the type disadvantage. Meanwhile, Ash is called for another water gun, wanting to get this battle over with, since he's boiling. Though being Blaine's ace, Magmar easily endures this, closing on Wartortle and using Fire Punch to strike it across the face. It then follows up with a Skull Bash that sends Ash's partner crashing face first into the battlefield, before attempting to use the same finisher it did against Gary's Nidoking, by turning the arena into a vat of lava. However, here it meets some opposition in the form of Wartortle, who despite being prone, is able to muster another water gun, striking any point Magmar hits with Flamethrower, and thus impeding its goal. Unfortunately, this is a delaying tactic at best, as Magmar's flames burn far hotter than Wartortle is able to cool, with the field still heating up and slowly beginning to liquefy. Knowing that unless it can up its firefighting ability exponentially it will become turtle soup, Wartortle begins putting everything it has into Water Gun, bathing the ground and causing a steam haze to fill the volcanic cavern. Seeing this, Blaine tells Magmar to use Fire Blast on Wartortle, and as he predicted, Ash has started to divert its attention from the battlefield to holding back the flaming Kunju with its Water Gun. This leaves Magmar free to boil the field to its heart's content, as the turtle Pokemon is stuck in place trying to hold back a fiery tide that will engulf at any moment, assuming the rapidly heating ground doesn't take it out first. This is an undeniably dire situation. The Wartortle and Ash have fought their way out of these before, and so thinking of its partner, Wartortle marshals all its remaining strength and lets out a scream as white light consumes it. A moment later, a proud Blastoise lies in its place, and by using its 2 newly acquired cannons along with its mouth, Blastoise is able to triple its water output, easily blowing the Fire Blast away, then turning its attention to Magmar. Against such a powerful deluge, Magmar is unable to keep its footing, being blown back as Blastoise then extinguishes the battlefield, allowing it to rise to its feet and glare at Magmar. Desperately, Blaine makes one more attempt at Skull Bash, though this is far less effective than before, as after bouncing off Blastoise's thickened shell, the Shellfish Pokemon levels its 2 cannons at its opponent, and blasts it with a 2-pronged water gun, which is more than enough to take it out, earning Ash his penultimate badge. Meanwhile, Gary is just about to attempt the same, having arrived at last in Pallet Town. After several months on the road, it is good to be home, and so hopping in his car, Gary and his cohort head up the high street towards Oak's lab. Having heard the boy was coming, Professor Oak is there to greet his grandson, asking if Gary's here to swap his Pokemon for his upcoming gym battles. Though with a shake of his head, Gary reveals that actually he's here to challenge his Gramps, since he knows that back in the day he ran a gym right here in Pallet after stepping down as league champion. A little surprised, the Elder Oak says that was a long time ago, before he became a researcher, but with a grin, Gary retorts that even so, if he's going to be the best, he has to beat the best, and that means his Gramps. Thanking the youth for the compliment, Oak sighs that he never could say no to Gary. Very well, they'll have a battle here in the corral, and if Gary beats his old friends, he'll give him a blank badge. A moment later, the 2 Oaks find themselves in the wide-open pasture behind the lab, with Samuel explaining the rules of this battle. Like the Pewter Gym, it will be a 2-on-2, though in this case, both Pokemon will be used at once, as a test of teamwork between both trainer and Pokemon, as well as the Pokemon themselves. He then brings out his 2 Pokemon, a Kangaskhan and a Dodrio, while Gary chooses Poliwhirl and Raichu, with the young man declaring he wants to show his Gramps both the fruit of the training he helped him with, and the power of the Pokemon he gave him when he was starting out. Being the challenger, Gary is given the first move, and as has become a staple for him, he opens by telling Poliwhirl to use Rain Dance. Up above, a series of storm clouds begin brewing. Then with a grin, Gary orders Raichu to use Thunderbolt, with it striking the clouds and creating a thunderstorm. Now both rain and lightning fall from the sky, which is good news for Gary's team, though bodes poorly for Oak, as Dodrio quickly becomes agitated at the sight of its electrical downpour. Nonetheless, Oak looks quite pleased, telling his grandson that mastery of the battlefield is a valuable skill, and when he can see the boy has already mastered. Nodding, Gary replies that his Gramps is about to see that he's mastered many skills. He then tells Poliwhirl to use Double Slap, and at once, the tadpole Pokemon is upon Kangaskhan, hammering it with a barrage of blows, while from the back, Raichu uses the rain to carry his Thunderbolt to Dodrio, who squawks in pain. However, as Gary is about to learn, he's not the only one who can deal damage, as on Oak's command, Kangaskhan lashes out with Mega Punch, sending Poliwhirl flying, while Dodrio similarly takes flight, blasting Raichu with a tri-attack. Landing in a heap together, the two challenger Pokemon take a moment to get to their feet, though when they do, it is with fire in their eyes as they repeat their previous moves. Shaking his head a little, Oak tells Gary that while repetition is good in research, as it makes results more accurate, in battling it can be a detriment, as once the opponent knows a trick, they won't fall for it twice. To prove this point, he has Kangaskhan dodge each of Poliwhirl's punches before bopping it once more on the head with Mega Punch, while Dodrio uses the electrical part of its second tri-attack to block the Thunderbolt before lobbing the move at Raichu. Gritting his teeth, Gary comments that he can see how his Gramps won the Pokemon League, though the old man shouldn't count him out yet, since he's no one-trick ponyta. He then tells Raichu to stand by, instructing it to dodge and nothing else until he says so, before looking at Poliwhirl and telling it to start shadow boxing with double slaps. Curious to see what Gary is planning, Oak allows this, watching as Raichu darts away from the tri-attacks with no reprisal, while Poliwhirl begins boxing the air at rapidly increasing intervals. For a moment, it seems as though Gary is simply stalling. Then, something changes in the young man's eyes, as he tells his Pokemon to go now. At once, the duo spring into action, with Poliwhirl using its incredible rain-enhanced speed to close in on Kangaskhan, while Raichu launches another Thunderbolt directly at Dodrio. Like last time, Oak employs the same counters, with Kangaskhan dodging before coming in for a hit, while Dodrio readies a tri-attack. However, here things are different, as when Dodrio absorbs the attack, Gary does not seem troubled, instead telling Raichu to keep feeding the tri-attack. This causes the yellow orb of the three-pronged move to grow far larger than its counterparts, creating an instability that Dodrio cannot control. Though, this is not the worst of it, as a moment later, Oak realizes what Gary was waiting for, as a bolt of lightning from the storm strikes the tri-attack, finally overloading it and causing it to quite literally blow up in Dodrio's face, taking it out of the fight. Meanwhile, Kangaskhan has come in for its retaliatory Mega Punch, intent on this time taking Poliwhirl down. However, when it swings, something stops it, a gust of wind emanating from Poliwhirl's fists, which repel the punch, allowing the water type to move in without fear and uppercut Kangaskhan's jaw. Looking impressed, Oak praises Gary for taking what he said was a weakness and making it into a strength, by using the repetition to create a momentum air current that could protect Poliwhirl. And of course, he is just as pleased by the trust Gary and Raichu have formed, having such synchronicity they could anticipate lightning and use it to score a knockout. Very well done on both counts. Smirking, Gary replies that his Gramps hasn't seen anything yet, as he has Poliwhirl fall back to stand beside Raichu. Then with a glint to his eyes, he tells the twin fighters to use the move they did against Aerodactyl, with Poliwhirl and Raichu launching a combined water gun Thunderbolt which strikes Kangaskhan head on and takes it down, ending the battle. Applauding proudly, Oak calls this a magnificent battle. Then, as promised, he pulls a small white badge from his coat pocket, calling it the Blank Badge. He then also bestows Gary with a second gift, that being a Water Stone, as he says that with its penchant for pugilism, Poliwhirl might do well to evolve into a Poliwrath, so it can make the most of its talents. Nodding, Gary thanks his Gramps for the tip, while Poliwhirl seems just as excited, eager as ever to reap the benefits of evolution, with it quickly reaching out to touch the stone and transcend into its highest form. Though Gary wants to get back on the road and head for Viridian, he knows that his fans will all want to visit their friends and family, and so agrees to spend the weekend here in Pallet Town, before setting out first thing Monday to challenge the gym when it reopens. Unbeknownst to him, someone else has already had this idea, with that being Ash. Arriving in Viridian City on Sunday night, the boy is the first to challenge the gym on Monday, with a man in an orange suit being there to greet him. When Ash says he wants to battle, the orange-clad gym leader who introduces himself as Giovanni tells him the terms of the battle are simple: all his Pokemon against the gym leader's one. Frowning, Ash says this doesn't sound very fair, though with a chuckle, Giovanni responds that it probably isn't, though not in the way Ash thinks. He then presses a button, and with a rumble a door onto the battlefield opens, revealing a Pokemon Ash has never seen before, clad head to toe in armor. What follows cannot truthfully be referred to as a battle, as a massacre would be far more accurate. One by one, Ash's Pokemon fall to the might of this armored monstrosity, with even Blastoise being able to land a single hit, as it is thrown against the wall by psychic energy. Soon, Ash is down to his final Pokemon, Charmeleon, with the red lizard coming to its trainer's defense willingly, in spite of the odds. Like with every other battle against Giovanni's monster, this one starts the same, with the mystery Pokemon using telekinesis to lift Charmeleon into the air, and slam it around like a ragdoll before it can do anything. Then, when the psychic type is sure it can't take any more, it drops its prey in a heap. However, here something different happens, as even after taking this beating, Charmeleon manages to get back up, roaring with fiery passion that will not fail its friend. Then, as if manifesting its claim through will alone, Charmeleon begins to glow, growing wings and horns which grant it a fearsome countenance, as it glowers now at its foe ready to fight for Ash's dream as a Charizard. Something in this seems to grant Ash's Bulbasaur and Blastoise a second wind, with the pair rising to their feet to stand beside Charizard. And as the armored beast stares down this trio and their trainer, it feels a pang, like a memory long forgotten, only to be triggered by this sight. Did it ever have friends such as these? The creature doesn't know, though one thing is clear. The sight of the boy now hugging his partners fills it with pain, grief, jealousy. Why must it stand alone in this world? Suddenly, the monster's armor begins to buckle and crack, the emotional upheaval amplifying its psychic abilities beyond its already unprecedented limits. Knowing that he will lose his weapon if he does not act now, Giovanni orders his creation to return to its alcove, though it is already far too late, with a psychic Pokemon shooting upward through the roof, its destination unclear, though its goal simple: search the world for someone that an artificial creature such as itself can call a friend. Scowling deeply, Giovanni tosses Ash a badge, declaring that he won by forfeit, while demanding he get out. This is truly a disaster. His property is now missing, and he has no way of knowing where it will appear next. This will require a full-scale operation, and the attention of his top operatives, perhaps even the rising star trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth. Whatever it takes to recover what is rightfully his. Despite the odd end to this gym battle, Ash is still delighted with the outcome, pinning his Earth badge to his vest and declaring that he finally got Elate, meaning it's time for the Pokemon League. Stepping outside, Ash is met by the sight of Gary and his gang, with the brunette leering that he wouldn't have expected to see Ashy Boy here of all places. Refusing to let Gary spoil his good mood, Ash replies that actually he's just leaving, having earned his 8th badge, a fact which seems to annoy the young oak, as he snarks that if a doofus like Ash could win, then this gym must be a piece of cake. Shrugging, Ash replies that Gary will have to wait and see before strolling off. Though before he goes, Gary yells out one more question to his fellow Pallet Town resident, asking if it's true what his Gramps said, that Ash's final Pokemon is so rare that even he'd never seen it before. Smirking a little now, Ash simply replies that it is, though if Gary wants to see it, he'll have to make it to the league. He then departs in earnest, leaving the Oak Boy to ponder what this mystery Pokemon could be. To add further fuel to Gary's annoyance, it takes over an hour before he's let into the gym, being informed by the Centurion guards that the gym leader is left on business, and that an interim leader will be arriving shortly. Finally, Gary and his friends are allowed into the cavernous gym, and as they step inside, they are met by a resounding cry of "Prepare for trouble!" and "Make it double!" as the lights come up, revealing none other than Butts and Cassidy. Groaning loudly, Gary demands to know what these two clowns are doing here, with Mitch replying that they're not clowns, they're interim gym leaders, so if he wants their badge, he ought to treat them with a little more respect. Rolling his eyes, Gary decides to play along, asking what the terms of their battle are, with Cassidy replying they'll be using 3 Pokemon, while he only gets to use 1, before bringing out her first Pokemon in Marchamp. Figuring that all 3 Pokemon will probably be bruises like this considering the duo's previous outings, Gary decides to go with something that can take a hit, and for that job, there's no one better than Exeggutor. Rudely, Cassidy decides to take the first move, having Marchamp use Karate Chop, with the superpower Pokemon laying into the palm tree with all 4 of its hands. However, being the defensive wall that it is, Exeggutor simply ignores this, its 3 heads looking around as if wondering how they got here. That is until Gary tells it to use Psychic, at which point they all zero in on Marchamp, their eyes glowing. Suddenly, the bulky brawler finds itself as helpless as a newly hatched Magikarp, as it is lifted into the air and sent flying through a wall. Unsurprisingly, this is enough to take it out, meaning Brad is up now, sending out a Golem and telling it to use Tackle. Letting out a roar, the burly boulder now tries its hand at throwing itself at Exeggutor, though just like the last guy, the grass psychic type truly does not seem to care, instead retaliating with a Mega Drain that saps Golem of its strength and causes it to keel over unable to battle. Down to their last Pokemon already, Bart and Cassidy then throw their final ball together, revealing a Rhydon who actually looks like it might be capable of posing a challenge. That is if its trainers can actually agree on a move, as when it comes time to start, Cassidy orders a Stomp, while Branch calls for a Horn Attack, causing Rhydon to look back at the two of them, unsure who to obey. In unison, the 2 Team Rocket grunts declare that obviously it should listen to them, which only further fractures their teamwork, with the 2 interim gym leaders quickly devolving into name-calling and hair-pulling. While Gary could use this opportunity to easily take out Rhydon with another Mega Drain, this is far too amusing, and so he sits back to watch the Team Rocket duo fight. Finally, Rhydon gets fed up with his bickering, causing it to clamber through the whole Marchamp maiden leave, thus rendering Crunch and Cassidy the losers, as they are now all out of Pokemon. Clearing his throat, Gary tells them to pay up and give him his badge. But now in an even worse mood, the duo decline, bringing out Primeape and Raticate, though this proves to be a mistake, as now that they've resorted to playing dirty, Gary feels no guilt having Exeggutor use Psychic to hoist them up into the air and shake them by their ankles until an Earth badge falls out of their pockets, at which point he has Raichu's Thunderbolt to send them blasting off through the conveniently placed hole in the roof from Ash's battle. Collecting his badge, Gary wonders what he should do now, as while there are other gyms in the region, it seems rather pointless to challenge them when Ash already beat him to the finish line by getting his required 8 first. With this in mind, Gary decides the best course of action is probably to go home, since Pallet's pretty close to the Indigo Plateau, meaning he can wait there until the league starts next month. Consulting with Raichu Executor and his fan club, they all seem to think it's a great idea, and so it is that when he gets back in the car, it is to ask his driver to make a return trip to where they just were. The month that follows is for the most part a restful one, as while Gary does train with his Pokemon, it is fairly casual, since with them already having gained entry to the league, there is no sense of urgency driving him forward. In contrast, Ash spends this last month undertaking multiple training excursions for Professor Oak, often having to rise early and be gone for days at a time. For his trouble, he comes across figures such as Bruno of the Elite Four, Professor Westwood V, who was Oak's collaborator for the Pokédex, and even remnants of an ancient civilization called Pokemopolis. Finally, the fateful day arrives, with both Gary and Ash traveling to the Indigo Plateau for the start of the Pokemon League. In spite of their differences, both are excited to prove themselves in the main stadium, though to do so, first they must win their way up through the preliminaries. For his first match, Gary finds himself in a rocky battlefield, facing off with the similarly rocky named Pete Pebbleman, and though the young man does not use rock types, his Ace Cloyster proves just as difficult to crack, taking down Aerodactyl thanks to the prehistoric Pokemon's weakness to ice. Luckily, if anything can crack Cloyster's hard shell, it is Raticate's super effective jump kick, which nets Gary the win and brings him to the second round. Meanwhile, Ash's match against Melissa on the waterfield goes just as well, as it gives Blastoise ample opportunity to make use of its powerful cannons and swimming speed to gain a 3-0 victory. The remaining 3 preliminaries go just as easy for our 2 protagonists, with them finding themselves in the top 16 before they even know it. Here, Ash finds himself up against a boy who bears a striking resemblance to himself, named Richie, though with no Team Rocket to interfere, and no ties of friendship to give him doubts, his Charizard, Pidgeotto, and Bulbasaur are easily able to overcome Zippo, Happy, and Sparky, sending Ash to the top 8. Gary's top 16 opponent proves slightly more challenging, as it is a young woman named Jeanette Fisher, whose final Pokemon Bellsprout is known for having unbeatable dodging prowess. This skill has made her the odds-on favourite to win the whole conference. That is until Gary's Nidoking stomps the little weed into the dirt until it can't move anymore, at which point Gary becomes the odds-on favourite. Here, however, something occurs that was always bound to happen sooner or later. Ash and Gary are matched up for the right to advance to the semi-finals. Locking eyes from across the room, the 2 lifelong rivals then give each other determined looks, with no words being necessary, as they both reach the same conclusion, that tomorrow they will put this rivalry to bed and settle the score once and for all. The following morning, the 2 boys make their way into Indigo Stadium, where a crowd of thousands eagerly awaits their bout. As they take their places, they are informed this will be a full 6-on-6 with no time limit. Then as the ref waves his flags, they are told to begin. At once, Gary and Ash each bring out their first Pokemon, with Gary choosing his Poliwrath, while Ash goes for a slim purple feline that Gary's never seen before. This must be the mystery Pokemon his Gramps mentioned, and so pulling out his Pokédex, which was thankfully updated during his stay in Pallet, he points to the creature, with Dexter telling him that it is Espeon, the Sun Pokemon, an evolution of Eevee. It also tells him that it's a Psychic type, a fact which troubles Gary, as his Poliwrath is weak to Psychic type attacks. As a result, the young Oak wastes no time in switching out, recalling Poliwrath and replacing it with his Exeggutor. This should at least give Gary some security, as Exeggutor is resistant to all psychic attacks, meaning Gary can gauge this unfamiliar Pokemon's ability without running the risk of losing any of his Pokemon as he does. However, it seems that Gary isn't the only one trying to assess the situation, as Ash orders Espeon to rush in with Quick Attack. Letting a confident meow, the Lilac Cat dashes at its foe, slamming headfirst into the thick trunk of Exeggutor and bouncing off harmlessly. Mockingly, Gary taunts them when his Gramps told them to battle with their heads. This isn't what he meant. Though grinning, Ash replies this was just a warm-up, as he next calls for Psybeam. Suddenly, a Psionic Beam of Energy shoots out of the gem on Espeon's head, though here Gary has a counter, calling for Egg Bomb, with Exeggutor launching several egg-shaped orbs of energy which strike the cat just as the Psychic Laser hits Exeggutor. As a result, both Pokemon take damage, though it appears as though Gary is the winner in that exchange, as the smaller feline comes out of it looking worse for wear. Nonetheless, Ash seems undeterred, telling Espeon that it's the best and urging it to try Psychic this time. Nodding, Espeon begins to glow with blue Psychic aura, and so not wanting to be outdone, Gary gives the same command with Exeggutor also taking on the blue hue. For a moment, it seems like nothing is happening, as the 2 Pokemon have a stare down. Then, in the center of the battlefield, cracks begin to form as faint blue sparks appear in the air. This is a game of psychic tug-of-war, as both combatants attempt to push their unseen wall of psychic energy past the other so they can strike their opponent with the force of both. Though conventional wisdom would suggest that 3 heads are better than 1 in a battle of wits, this fails to take into account the intelligence of these heads, as 3 dopes can hardly be considered a match for 1 crafty kitty. And so it is that a moment later, the stalemate breaks, with Exeggutor being flung back, having lost the psychic duel, and now suffering the consequences of having its brains fried. Subsequently, when it crashes to the ground, it is with spirals for eyes, having been summarily felled. Gritting his teeth, Gary next chooses Raichu, trusting his raw power to be more than a match for Ash's newest capture. Like last time, Ash calls for Quick Attack, though this time Gary does likewise, with the two Pokemon proving to be roughly even in terms of speed. This results in a number of fast-paced clashes as the two Pokemon attempt to assert dominance, though having the bulk advantage, it is clear that Raichu will win in that regard. Changing tack, Ash next calls for a Psybeam, though here Gary is able to match it, ordering a Thunderbolt. Once more the two attacks meet in the middle, though like with the Quick Attack clashes, Raichu proves itself Espeon's superior, breaking through and sending the twin-tailed cat flying. Here too a piece of long-held belief is disproven, as though cats are always said to land on their feet, this is not the case with Espeon, who lands painfully on its side, digging a trench through the battlefield as it comes to rest unconscious at Ash's feet. However, Raichu also seems rather drained from this encounter, causing Gary to recall it in favour of Nidoking, as Ash in turn brings out his Beedrill. At once the king glares daggers at his opponent, as if questioning how dare a measly bug challenge him. While being a timid soul, Beedrill quails a little under this gaze. That is until Ash reassures it that everything is okay, and that all it needs to worry about is having fun out there. This does comfort the bug somewhat, so that when the call is given to begin, it is able to parry Nidoking's horn attack with one of its stingers, as the poison ground type goes in the attack. This quickly becomes the way of things, as Nidoking attempts to use his size and strength to keep Beedrill in the defensive. However, to Beedrill's credit, it is able to keep up, using its nimble and acrobatic aerial sword fighting technique to keep Nidoking from gaining any opening to finish it off, a feat few can boast. Naturally, this infuriates the domineering Nidoking, with his moves becoming more erratic and aggressive as he attempts to pin down this troublesome insect, something that only favours Beedrill, as it starts finding openings to get in a few hits of its own in the midst of the drill Pokemon's rage. Eventually, however, Nidoking does manage to corner Beedrill, yanking it from the air and stomping it into submission, though as it loses consciousness, the Poison Bee Pokemon knows that its efforts weren't for nothing, as it has laid the foundations that will lead to the toppling of the king. Next up for Ash is Charizard, with the flame Pokemon taking to the field with a roar. On Ash's command, it then begins using Rage, while Gary in turn has Nidoking use Horn Attack, resulting in a clash of bulky bruises as the pair use any appendage at their disposal to throttle their foe. Unfortunately, this clash of the titans proves inconclusive, as the duo are of comparable strength, meaning that if either are going to pull out a win, they will have to rely on skills more than strength. As a result, Gary yells for a Poison Sting, with Nidoking couching his horn like a lance and charging right at Charizard. However, in contrast, Ash seems unfazed, telling Charizard to wait, then at the last second, having it use Seismic Toss. At once, the fire lizard's arms dart out, wrapping Nidoking in a bear hug, before launching into the air. Desperately, the draw Pokemon attempts to break free, but it is no good, as the G-Force keeps him pressed against Charizard, as the Flame Pokemon starts making its rotations. Round and round the pair go, until Charizard finally feels ready to take the plunge, at which point it dives at tremendous speeds, playing chicken with the ground. Then, at the last possible moment, it pulls up, while tossing Nidoking so that he takes the full brunt of the impact. Such an attack is too much for even the king, and so when Charizard touches down, it is to stand over the body of its vanquished foe. However, even in defeat, Nidoking has one last barb to hurl at Charizard, quite literally in fact, as on closer inspection, Ash sees that his dragon has been poisoned by Nidoking's poison sting after all. Remembering what Melanie taught him about poisons, Ash decides to recall Charizard for now, resulting in a clean slate battlefield for this next round. Weighing their options, Ash and Gary next bring out Bulbasaur and Raticate respectively, a fitting match as both are the unsung heroes of their teams. Squaring up, the two then charge at each other, with Raticate using Super Fang while Bulbasaur retaliates with Vine Whip. Breaking apart, the pair then resort to a couple of old faithfuls, that being Jump Kick and Razor Leaf, as Raticate springs into the air kicking away the leaves as they appear, while Bulbasaur leaps out of the way, resulting in a crash landing. Letting out a chitter of pain, Raticate then scrambles to its feet, only to be bound by Vine Whip, as Bulbasaur prepares to use Sleep Powder, knowing that in this league, sleeping and fainting are considered one and the same. However, being a crafty trainer, Gary tells Raticate to bite Bulbasaur's vine as soon as the powder fills the air, a clever tactic, as while grass types are usually immune to these sort of powder moves, a direct injection of the soporific chemicals into the seed Pokemon's bloodstream is quite another matter, and so it is that when the sleep powder coats Raticate's teeth, it chomps down, giving the grass type a taste of its own medicine. Unfortunately, this does little to protect Raticate from the sleep powder, meaning that once again the rat has taken one for the team, though in doing so, has removed a dangerous foe. And just like that, both trainers are down to 3 Pokemon each, with Ash choosing his Pidgeotto while Gary goes with Aerodactyl. Cawing proudly, Pidgeotto readies itself to go on the attack. After all its hard work and effort, this is a chance to prove itself. Fondly, it thinks back on all the good times it has had with Ash since meeting him on the first day of his journey, though, in allowing itself to get lost in the past, it fails to keep its eye on the present, specifically how presently a big fossil is flying right at its face, until it strikes it head on and takes it out in one, reminding everyone why Aerodactyl was once king of the skies. Now with the tide back in Gary's favour, Ash is forced to choose his next Pokemon carefully, Though Blastoise would be a smart pick, he wants to save his starter for the end, meaning he really only has one option, with that being Charizard. Letting out a somewhat groggy roar, the flame Pokemon takes the field once more, causing Gary to sneer that if Ashy Boy is trying to throw the match at this point, he could just save them all the time and surrender. However, this taunt proves to be a mistake, as it lights a fire in Charizard's eyes, giving it the strength to rise to defend its best friend. Nonetheless, Gary and Aerodactyl aren't that worried, with the Oak Boy calling for another Ancient Power in the hope that this will be another one-hit KO. Unfortunately, Ash and Charizard have no intention of allowing this, with the dragon launching itself into the air and dodging the fossil, before coming in for a rage-powered punch that leaves Aerodactyl reeling. Refusing to lose this advantage, Charizard then begins to pummel the rocky flyer, striking with its claws, legs, tail, and even head as it drives the prehistoric Pokemon into the dirt. Soon, Aerodactyl finds itself buried in a crater, with a furious dragon standing over it, an unenviable position if ever there was one. However, it is not out of tricks yet, as when Ash calls for Flamethrower to finish it off, Gary has the ancient avian use Hyper Beam, bathing Charizard in orange light and leaving it nowhere to be seen. For a moment, Gary worries that he accidentally disintegrated the lizard with Aerodactyl's awesome power, but then he sees it, having flown up at the last moment and seemingly outpaced the point-blank blast. Gary would be impressed if not for the fact that now Aerodactyl needs a moment to recharge, and seeing this vulnerability, Charizard capitalizes, laying down a volley of Dragon Rages which the fossil Pokemon cannot avoid, and more importantly, cannot withstand, bringing the match back to 2-all. Even a jolt of poison through the lizard's veins cannot lessen its good mood as it lands, with Ash hugging it and calling it incredible. Breathing fire as a sign of determination, Charizard roars that it will face whoever Gary has next for it, though when its eyes land on its opponent, it can't help but smile. So Poliwhirl has evolved too. Good. It's been itching for this rematch. Meanwhile, Poliwrath has made its way onto the field, feeling similarly eager at the sight of Charizard, with the two Pokemon almost having a false start as they lunge forward just as the ref calls for the match to begin. At once they open with a clash of Double Slap and Rage, resuming the slugfest from Grandpa Canyon. Now they know there will be no interruptions. Quickly, this magnifies into an all-out brawl, as both Pokemon attempt to prove how far they've come since their last match, with Poliwrath making use of its newly acquired fighting typing to hit all the harder, while Charizard uses its size and weight advantage to deliver some devastating blows of its own. However, despite all their growth, it seems the pair are evenly matched, meaning when they break apart, is to consider strategies that might help them turn the tide. For Poliwrath, this is obvious, as by using Rain Dance, it's able to become the speedy striker it is trained to be, though here Charizard has a natural counter in the form of its wings, taking to the air and neutralizing all of Poliwrath's punching power. Luckily, Poliwrath is also a skilled ranged fighter, launching a water gun which makes the dragon hiss in pain, before it retaliates with a Dragon Rage, which likewise wounds Poliwrath. Unfortunately for Ash, he isn't so sure if Charizard can repeat this feat, as when more poison damage causes Charizard to wobble in the air, he knows this battle cannot last much longer. To this end, he tells his friend to put everything it has into a flamethrower, while Gary in turn tells his Poliwrath to do the same with water gun. Fire and water then clash in midair, causing steam to erupt throughout the field, though unlike before, this is not a battle of equals, as between the rain, the poison, and the fact that it had to fight Aerodactyl, Charizard is far too weak to hang on, with the water gun consuming the flames and striking the lizard head-on, taking it out. As Charizard hits the ground, Poliwrath scowls, recognizing all the disadvantages Charizard was at, and so as Ash recalls it, the tadpole Pokemon makes a promise to battle its rival again someday, under fairer conditions. Last up for Ash is none other than his starter Blastoise, with the shellfish Pokemon bellowing fiercely as it takes to the field. Wanting to wash the bad taste of that last match from its mouth, Poliwrath then opens fire with Water Gun before Gary can even command it. Though this proves to be a mistake, as on Ash's command, Blastoise is easily able to meet this with a Twin Cannon Hydro Pump, which far surpasses the Tadpole Single Stream, washing the move and its user away in one fell swoop. Now at last it is down to the final clash. Starter versus starter, with Raichu retaking the field as he smirks at Blastoise. Even with type advantage against them, Ash shows no hesitancy as he turns his cap backwards and tells his partner to give it his all, an order the Titanic Tortoise is happy to obey, taking a running leap and slamming into Raichu with their signature rapid spin. In retaliation, Gary has Raichu's Thunderbolt, the due to Blastoise being inside its shell to spin, this damage is somewhat mitigated. Re-emerging, Blastoise then goes for another Hydro Pump, hoping to make short work of Raichu like it did Poliwrath, though here at least Raichu is able to get the better of it, scurrying forward to avoid the deluge, then electrocuting its foe at point-blank range. This promptly sends Blastoise staggering, and being who he is, Gary does not hesitate to follow up, having Raichu zap the turtle again and sending it toppling onto its back. Briefly, it seems like this might be curtains for Ash and Blastoise, though when the boy cries for his friend, the water type finds the will to get back up, continuing the fight. Acknowledging this gutsy move, Raichu makes no move to attack until Blastoise is back on its feet, though when it is, the onslaught continues, with it this time using Quick Attack to deliver a blow to the water starter's face. At this range, Blastoise is unable to hit Raichu with its cannons, though this is not the only trick it has, as by withdrawing its head into its shell, it is able to launch it like a piston, driving a powerful skull bash into the mouse, which sends it bouncing back across the field. By now, neither Pokemon is looking too crash hot, and so in a bid to end things in their favour, both Ash and Gary give what may well be their final order, Thunderbolt for Gary and Hydro Pump for Ash. As one, the two Pokemon then open fire, and as their attacks meet in the middle, a mighty explosion rocks the stage, kicking up dust and obscuring everything. When it fades, both Raichu and Blastoise remain on their feet, though only just as they sway woozily. Desperately, both trainers cry for their stars to push just a little bit harder and get in one last attack, though it seems that both Pokemon have already gone beyond their limits, as when Raichu takes one last staggering step to initiate a quick attack, he instead falls forward, crashing to the ground and giving the battle to Ash. For a moment, Gary cannot believe what he is seeing. How did he, Gary Oak, lose? And to an idiot like Ash? It doesn't make any sense! However, this isn't entirely true, and as a buzzing fills his ears, a small voice in his own head points out that this isn't his first loss to Ash. After all, Ash did start before him, taking the starter he wanted. Then, when he took a vacation in Porta Vista, Ash got ahead of him in their gym challenge, a lead he never lost, with the Raven-haired boy getting 8 badges first. Though he hates to admit it, Ash has been pulling ahead of him for a long time now, and this match has definitively proven that he has truly surpassed him at last. Having no reason to stick around now that he's been eliminated from the conference, Gary and his crew head back to Pallet Town to regroup. Over the next few days, Gary finds himself lost in thought, trying to figure out what exactly it is about Ash that allowed him to surpass someone like him who had every advantage. As he does with most important matters, Gary eventually turns to his Gramps for advice, visiting him at his lab on the day of the Pokemon League finals. Heading into the living room, he finds the old man watching the final clash on TV, which to Gary's surprise, sees Ash facing off with a blue-haired girl the commentators call Assunta. Currently, Ash's Blastoise is using Hydro Pump against Assunta's Ivysaur, which is using Solar Beam, and though the smart money would be on the grass type, somehow Ash manages to defy the odds again, with Hydro Pump breaking through and striking Ivysaur, taking it down and making Ash Ketchum the newest winner of the Pokemon League. Taking a seat beside his Gramps, Gary somewhat dejectedly asks how Ash does it. How does he keep coming out on top when he shouldn't? Smiling, the professor comments that it sounds like Gary's been giving this a lot of thought, so does he not have any theories of his own? Shaking his head, Gary replies that he's completely at a loss, a claim which makes Oak sigh, as he admits that he supposes it would be a hard question for Gary to figure out being who he is. He then looks the boy in the eye and says quite simple, Ash succeeds because he's willing to pay the price for his success. This doesn't make anything clearer to Gary, who asks what his Gramps is talking about, causing the old man to chuckle, as he elaborates that Gary always assumes he will succeed at whatever he does, with any failure he encounters being an aberration, and he has good reason to, as he is an intelligent, well-liked, and talented young man who has no trouble getting whatever he wants. This is even evident in the way Gary built his team, as 4 of his Pokemon evolved with the use of stones, which were a means to gain immediate evolutionary power boosts, while the other 2 had no need to evolve at all, with one coming to him fully evolved, and with the benefit of trading, while the other had no evolution to speak of. In short, they are like Gary himself, a gifted team who needed to put in very little work to be where they are. In contrast, look at Ash's team, a ragtag group of starters, early route Pokemon, and a fluffball better suited to be a pet than a battler. Everything they achieved through hard work, and most importantly, through failure, since unlike Gary, Ash does not assume he will succeed. He believes it, but does not take it for granted in the way the young Oak does. As a result, when failure arises, Ash does not view it as something to be ashamed of. He instead looks to see what he can learn from it, so he can be better moving forward, since that is the other secret Ash knows, that failure is only final if he chooses it to be. By now, Gary thinks he understands what his Gramps is getting at, and even shoots the old man a searching gaze as he asks if he was expecting him to come talk to him. Smiling, Oak replies that he was hoping Gary would, since it has shown that the boy is still open to learning, something that will be very important in his next journey. Curiously, Gary asks what his journey might be too, but still smiling, Oak replies that only Gary can figure that out, though with his Pokemon by his side, and his newfound humility to guide him, he has every confidence the boy will be just fine wherever he chooses to go, and whatever he chooses to do. A few hours later sees Gary back on the road again, traveling by foot this time, with only Raichu by his side. Though his destination remains a mystery to him, he knows the only way he can find it is by following the path ahead and learning from whatever is thrown at him. As he walks, a storm begins to brew, similar to the one on the first day of his travels so long ago. Hunkering down with Raichu under a tree, the pair watches the Pokemon of the forest react, with some reveling in the water while others flee from the downpour. It is a fascinating sight, though nothing can compare to what the pair see when the rain dies down. A magnificent rainbow bird Pokemon breaking through the clouds and leaving light in its wake. Gary has never seen any Pokemon like this before, and as it passes overhead bound for paths unknown, the young oak is reminded of a simple fact. Even if this part of his adventure is finished, there will always be another, as the journey never truly ends. And that's where we'll leave the story of What If Ash Woke Up on Time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. And I will see you as the journey continues.